Welcome to the Dragon's Library, your source for games, movies, shows, and more. Hello everybody, this is the Dragon's Library again. Welcome back. That was a weird intro. So, I went and saw the new My Hero Academia movie, World Heroes Mission, which was great, obviously. It's My Hero Academia. They're kind of like the default, we're gonna be great, series. Okay, so I probably confused a decent amount of people, or anyone who doesn't know My Hero Academia is, which is basically just my parents. So, for those of you who don't know, today we're talking about My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission. It is a movie based on an anime known as My Hero Academia. It's basically X-Men, but different. That's the best way I can say it. So it's a sort of X-Men premise of, hey, humanity eventually started giving people born with natural-born superpowers called quirks, and at this point, it's sort of like the inverse of X-Men, where society ended up mostly accepting them, and now 80% of the population has superpowers. So it's basically, hey, what if the whole world had superpowers? It's a very good show. I would very much recommend it. I might do a review of the entire series at one point. Maybe. That's a big undertaking, but I think I'm up to it. For now, though, we'll be talking about this movie, and yeah. So, this is the third My Hero Academia movie. The first two were great. And I've been really looking forward to this. I've been a bit exhausted this past week. So if I sound like really tired right now, it's because I'm recording this late at night like I usually do, but I'm kind of exhausted, so bear with me. Basically, there's this terrorist organization called Humorize who believe that in something called the Quirk Doomsday Theory. Basically, okay, so some background. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to give you a basic background in My Hero Academia before I go any further. My Hero Academia, like I said, is in a world where 80% of the population has quirks. The way quirks work are their unique abilities that can sometimes pop up randomly, but have some hereditary component. Meaning, while new quirks can appear, most people have quirks that are similar to or combinations of their parents' quirks. So, the villains, the terrorist organization Humorize, who the heroes are trying to stop in this movie, believe that as a result of quirks slowly combining over time, eventually they'll basically all fuse into a sort of massive quirk that no one will be able to control. They'll become so powerful, nobody will be able to control it, and new people that are born, and anyone who's born after, once everyone has a quirk, once it goes from 80 to 100%, years later, quirks will become so powerful after combining so much that the new children won't be able to control them, and they'll just end up killing themselves with their own quirks. So basically, humanity will go extinct. Which, I mean, it's interesting in the sense that it's an unsubstantiated theory. In fact, though, it's actually really interesting in the fact that it's not really that much of a question of whether or not it's true or not. See, in the show, the idea of it's like, it's an unsubstantiated theory, we have no idea if it's true or not, we still need to do a lot more research, which is, interesting. It's interesting for them to mention the idea of people latching onto theories just when they're made, rather than before they get evidence to it, which is an interesting theme. But one of the cool things about this premise is that from the show, and this is minor spoilers for My Hero Academia Season 3, we do have evidence of someone who was able to basically steal a bunch of quirks, and he had like hundreds of quirks inside himself and was perfectly capable of controlling him. So it stands to reason that even if quirks begin combining and fusing together in new users, it wouldn't lead to them losing control. At least not any more than the average quirk user has trouble controlling their quirk at first. So that's interesting. One of the more interesting things is the opening to the series had to mention that the first quirk user was a baby who was like glowing, and that was actually their leader, Flex Turn. He was the first human born with a quirk. Which is actually kind of interesting, like drawing that back, having him be the villain. So yeah, this is a big old shonen action series, so fun show. I will say upright, the best thing about this is probably the animation. The fight scenes in this movie are just gorgeous. This is some of the greatest Sakuga you will ever see. Like, if you want to see some amazing animated fight scenes, you've come to the right place. This stuff is high quality, and I freaking loved everything. They have all these 3D tracking shots you just don't get as much of in the show. There's this one battle when they're on a canyon fighting against, like, 3 other villains. Bakugou, Todoroki, and Deku, and they're all fighting together. And it's just like this continuous 3D tracking shot constantly moving around as the fight. As they're, as they, like, it follows, it'll, like, break off from a person, follow someone else, and track them all the way around. And it's just, I couldn't turn my eyes away from it. It was gorgeous. So, if you're looking for really good animation, this movie has it. Highly recommend. In addition, you don't actually need to know that much about the greater overall plot, because this is literally, hey, the main character and his friends are sent in to go work with the hero association they're interning with in the moment, which is mentioned in the movie, to deal with this terrorist plot, and it's a world hero tragedy. They also mention, tell everybody about the basic outline of the show, give you some context. So if you're worried about bringing someone who hasn't seen the show to go see this movie, don't be. They can come see this just fine. You don't have to worry about that. You do get a lot more context from having seen the show, and I think you should see the show first, but if you just want to bring someone to have a fun time at this movie with, trust me, they don't need to have had the show to understand what's going on in the plot. I truly feel that. Now, personally, I would have liked to have someone there who didn't see it, but I couldn't get anyone else to go with me, so I don't have a blind person, someone who hasn't seen the show's opinion, so I don't have, like, a blind opinion on this, but I think the movie is self-contained enough, separated enough from the main plot, and explains enough of its own rules to make it a very worthwhile experience, even for someone who hasn't seen the show. It might be a good gateway to it, even. Although I would say just watch the first season. Streaming is everywhere. You can do it in, like, an afternoon these days. But, yeah. So, that's how that's going. As for everything else, obviously, since this is a movie based on a animated series, there's always the one new OC character aside from the villain. That one person who ends up tagging along with the hero and acting as a main protagonist. For those of you, actually, you know what? This is actually an interesting time. I've always wanted to talk about this. For those of you who don't know, the reason that they often add characters like this into shows, what's the character? It's the, Rhodey, I think? Yeah, Rhodey. His name is Rhodey. He's this kind of, down in his luck. His father joined Humori, and he had to take care of his 2 younger siblings. They were ostracized. They're always low on money now. They used to have a really nice life, but, father left, abandoned them to go work for Humori. There's a bit more to it there. And he runs for people who are pretty shady, and one day while he's doing this run, the guy he works for didn't tell him what it was for. He ends up having to pick up a jewel case from a bunch of thieves. But he gets caught up in something else when the briefcase he was supposed to be smuggling gets switched with something that was being smuggled away by a traitor from the Humori sect. This guy was trying to smuggle it out, probably to the proper authorities, and the briefcase gets swapped. Izuku gets involved, Midoriya, the main character from the series, gets involved, and the 2 of them have to go on the run. It's interesting, but I'm not sure I like him really that much. He's alright, it's fun, the whole twist with his quirk was meh. I just thought, I thought it was going to be something more interesting than that. It's just kind of down. It's one of those moments where he's like, yeah, my power's pretty useless. And I'm like, yeah, that actually is kind of useless. Sorry, Rhodey. I know we're supposed to be cheering for you, but that quirk is kind of useless. I'm getting off topic. The reason they insert characters like this into movies based on anime series is that you can't really have the plot change that much in the movie. What I mean by that is, in a movie based around a series that's ongoing, currently we're in between 2 seasons right now. This movie is supposed to be in between 2 seasons. So, we know that at the beginning of the next season, Midoriya's alive, we know that all the side characters are alive, we know that all the big heroes that we know of are alive. The only people whose lives, well-being, or even general quality of life, whose status quo can change at all, are new heroes that are introduced in the background who could technically be severely injured or die, and a secondary protagonist created specifically for the movie. So if you have a secondary protagonist, you can get away with a lot more. For example, Rhodey has his, younger siblings. He has his missing dad. He has all this other stuff. He has stakes that the audience can get invested in. Now, this works at differing levels, and the main problem you often run into is you have a main character from the show, and a lot of people are conditioned to see them as a protagonist, and to a certain extent, they very much are. But the movie very much is structured around the new character as a protagonist. In fact, I'd say this movie often focuses more on Rhodey than it does on Midoriya, or at least gives them about equal screen time, if not giving him a bit more. Which is not inherently a bad thing. Most movies do need a protagonist who has actual risks. Technically, Rhodey's kid's family could die. As an audience, we can suspend our disbelief for that. We can't suspend our disbelief that Midoriya is ever in actual danger. He can get really beat up, but we know he's going to be fine for the next season. But Rhodey could make a heroic sacrifice. He could, lose his father. He could find out that his father's dead, or that his father really betrayed him, or that his siblings get killed, or his siblings get severely injured, and we don't know if they're going to live. And that's an actual question. Now, granted, depending on how invested you are in the story, you might, if you're not as invested, realize, this is aiming more at a 10 to 18-year-old demographic or something like that. It's aiming for that anime demographic, high school or middle school and high school. They're probably not going to kill, children on screen or have them die as a part of the plot. It's possible there have been shows in the same, target demographic that have done stuff like that, and I often think it's interesting that it's a subversion. And I think if you make it a part of it, the stakes get more interesting in general for other shows. But generally speaking, My Hero Academia is not the kind of show where I'd see something like that happen. But it is possible it would happen. And just the possibility of stakes for a character can make you much more invested in the ongoing story. And I'm saying this, okay? I'm saying all this to explain I kind of just didn't care about Rhodey. So I explained why they added these kind of things, and how theoretically we should be invested in his character to a certain extent. I'm just not. I personally didn't connect with him at all, and I just didn't think they were going to go through with anything. Now, I was interested in the single twist that I will get into in the spoiler section. I think that was handled very well. I also think the thing he did at the very climax, really trying hard not to spoil here, was good. I just didn't care much for him throughout the main plot. I get he was supposed to be sort of semi-unlikable. He was sort of supposed to be this person that acted a lot worse than he actually was, and often made very stupid choices out of survival, or because he cared more about his family, and that was supposed to make us really buy something, really trying hard not to spoil, that happened near the climax of the movie. But I don't know. It didn't feel like as well done as the two younger kids in the first movie. Not the first movie, the second movie, second My Hero Academia movie, the one where they were on the island. And I kind of just liked the first movie a lot. So, aside from all those complaints, the only other things I can say is that they still haven't really found a way to use the extended cast as much in a My Hero Academia movie. As usual, the other two supporting male leads, Bakugou and Todoroki. Bakugou is a kind of an a-hole, but, he's trying to be a hero as well. He has a bit more complexity to him. Watch the series, seriously. He's probably one of the least likable people who has one of the best redemption arcs ever. He goes from being a completely unlikable person to being a really likable person over the course of the series. Or at the very least, a person you understand a bit more, and you understand why he's like this, and you don't see him as, as horrible a person as he starts out with. He does some really horrible things in the beginning, but he gets better as a character, and they do redeem him. In a way that few other shows have ever pulled off, in my opinion. Todoroki, he just has complicated family issues. He was basically bred to have an intense fire quirk and a powerful ice quirk. And the problem was both their quirks, for example, the ice quirk, you can only handle so much cold. The fire quirk would eventually overheat your body. But by combining them together, using the ice quirk can kind of help you cool down from the fire quirk. So it's sort of like two mana bars that when one's used up, the other fills up kind of thing, which helps the quirk balance and makes them both more powerful and able to be used basically unlimited, to a nearly unlimited degree. He has some issues, and he's one of the, big 3 favorites of the show. So they get the screen time. But they've gotten screen time in the previous movies. It's a lot of their secondary class members, like Arachan, or the, Asui, or Hado, Ryuko, all the other different, classmates who have, really interesting personalities. They have all these very dynamic characters. And My Hero Academia has been really good about that. It's always been very strong about building a good secondary cast that's interesting and is not just like background characters almost that are there for the big fights. And it's a shame that throughout all these movies, they just haven't gotten that much to do. The only movie where a lot of the background characters, aside from Bakugou and Todoroki, got a lot to do was in the second one. The first movie, they were all just kind of backgrounds, except for Bakugou and Todoroki again. The second movie found a really good balance, having them all show off their abilities. They all played a really big part in the final battle. I thought that was great. And you see flashes of them helping out the other heroes, because the whole thing is their class has been split up, because they're working with different hero associations. They're all going different parts of the world. We see some new quirk users, like this guy who looks like an Egyptian pharaoh, and his whole deal is he's like 2D. It was pretty funny. I laughed a little bit at that when I first saw it. But we just don't see a lot. Like, we see 1 or 2 scenes, we see them doing stuff, but there's no context. There's not as much context to what they're doing. It's not as connected, in my opinion. And it felt more like, oh, right, we need at least 3 minutes of Arachan. So, let's see, 1 minute here, 1 minute here, and I guess we can give her 1 minute and 30 seconds here, if we're generous. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like they didn't give the other characters enough to do. That's just my opinion. But yeah. And again, that's something that's a bit harder to do in a movie than it is in a TV show. I understand that. So, I'm not sure I'm going to count it as a full downside, just because it's unable to expand on the characters as much as a full-length season of TV can. That's a little unfair. But yeah. Okay, everybody. That is currently the non-spoiler section. So, from here on out, there'll be big spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, go see the movie. I highly recommend it. I'm definitely going to be giving this around an 8 or a 9 out of 10. For what it is very good. I don't think it's the best version of this. I think the second movie is still the best My Hero Academia movie that we've ever had. So this is definitely getting probably an 8 from me. Now that I'm thinking about it, probably around an 8. So yeah. Okay, so I actually really like the villain organization. The villain's organization felt a lot more real than a lot of other supervillain organizations I've ever seen. My Hero Academia has always had good villains. I'm not sure I liked Flint that much as a villain, though. It was more his overall organization aesthetic I liked. One of the cool things is the symbol for, like, the quirk doomsday theory they have above their cathedral, because they're very, like, we are the religion, we must cleanse the earth, is that, it's a chimera. Which is interesting, because in the second movie, one of the characters who was, like, supposed to have one of these, like, really dangerous... He was one of the villains. He had this, like, super dangerous, powerful quirk. He was supposed to be unstoppable, like a monster. Had basically a chimera quirk. And it made me think of it like, oh, so it's like the combination of all these powerful traits that are on their own are fine, but in this final form become a dangerous monster that threatens to devour everything in fire. It's like, okay, that's really good symbology for the quirk doomsday theory. We know that theory isn't really correct, but The other thing they also do is, their whole thing is they need to kill off most quirk users, and then make sure none of the quirk users have kids, so only the non-quirk users have kids. It's basically a X-Men, a sort of an X-Men plotline. Sort of like, think Days of Future Past, with the Sentry bots, marking everyone if they have the X gene or not. Basically that. And the way they figure out who has it, because again, these are more genetic, they're not always obvious traits, is that they threaten to release a trigger gas bomb. The opening scene is basically them releasing an initial blast. And it's actually a really creative weapon. Or at least as an idea. Basically, trigger is a substance that can amplify a quirk user. It basically pushes their quirks to new levels. It has to be used in moderation, though, because it can cause a loss of control. What they did was they basically supercharged it and released a very high concentration of this supercharged trigger as a gas bomb on an entire city. So all the quirk users' quirks go like crazy. Like, you see a guy who has like a turtle quirk, so he has, has a shell, he has like a very turtleish appearance. He like physically shrinks down until he's just a mindless turtle. You see a guy with the wings bursting out of his back so large, eating up his own body mass because they're trying to grow and grow and grow. You see another lady literally melting into a puddle because she had the ability to become like, she had the ability to like turn someone into a slime, so she was literally just melting away. People setting themselves on fire. A lady with telekinesis who's literally ripping an entire office building apart and, ends up ripping herself apart in the process. Because their powers just can't be controlled anymore. And they literally turn every other quirk user into like a bomb. Not only killing themselves, but causing massive collateral damage. And then you just see some of the creepy rogue humorized members coming out from their underground tunnels to the wreckage to comfort the survivors, saying, "You are one of the chosen." The whole, we are the pure genetic cult leader nonsense that you see. That whole, complete insane whack job. Fleck Turn is insane. He's genuinely insane. They try and justify it by, like, saying his quirk was kind of like a curse to him. So it wasn't just that he glowed, although that seems like a lot more reasonable for, like, the first quirk. Like, that seems a lot more interesting, was that the first quirks were, just minor abnormalities and they got into superpowers. But apparently his quirk was actually really OP for the first quirk ever. He repelled everything. So he reflected everything around him. That's why he was glowing, because he was literally reflecting all the light. That went to him. He didn't like bend the light around him. He was literally glowing blue because he was reflecting the light on the ultraviolet spectrum, I think. And this also refers to attacks and stuff like that. His whole place is set up around a very mirror aesthetic. He has laser beam security. He can bounce them off himself. He's literally just unmovable because you can't, if you hit him, your arm's just going to break. Of course, Deku has a quirk that has been storing its power over generations, passed from user to user. And it's one of the physically strongest quirks on the planet, although he can't really use its full power without potentially causing himself severe harm. And he finds out that if he's willing to utilize that full power, which again could end up damaging his body beyond repair in small bursts, he can briefly overwhelm the quirk's ability, which was interesting, yeah, because the My Hero Academia is always very clear on the fact that quirks, no matter how powerful they are physical abilities, and like everything else, they have a limit. The quirk always reflects things around him, so it's never really reached its limit before, which is really interesting. And his whole trauma was that everyone around him, he could never be hugged, never be touched. You get the idea. He basically had a very distant, emotionless life, with everyone around him being pushed away. Although it's a lot more clearer that he just stopped trying after people couldn't physically be around him that easily, and he never reached out himself and gave up. Deku even calls him out on that, which was his failing. Like, the villain is not supposed to be right. They're supposed to be wrong. So his whole thing was that he didn't try to reach out to others, and when they got moved away, he didn't try and get closer. He just accepted that he was always going to push them away and didn't bother to chase after him, which is why everyone left him. Which is interesting. It's like, yeah, you did push everyone away, but you also didn't try and bring them back or, stop them from going away. You didn't, try and grab them or anything. You just couldn't be touched, so you became distant. I do like that a lot of the members, or we meet like a few different like elite quirk users who are, the chosen, like they've agreed to serve the cult for various reasons. There's this one archer lady who truly seems to believe in the doomsday theory, and she believes in protecting mankind against the quirks, which she must repent for, her own sinful quirk, like Fleck does. Then you also have another guy who the second he was captured, he's like, "I'll tell you anything, okay? I just wanted to live." And then another guy who's like, "I want to live in a world with the strong, and they've promised me that I will survive." You get different flavors of it, Some of them, so a lot of the scientists and other quirk users had their families held hostage and threatened. That's kind of what happened with Rhodey's parents, is that his dad was actually kidnapped by the cult to help make the bomb, the device that's going to release it all, and he was blackmailed and said that if he didn't cooperate, his family would die. And in a weird way, they actually do make... I think there's actually a moment in there when I realized, oh wow, they're trying to prove a point here too. See, they said that if he ever betrayed them, his family would suffer. And one of the bombs major plot point is that near the end, they reveal that one of the bombs is near Rhodey's family's home. He's been on the run because the police in the Othello are corrupt. They're working for the cult. So they attack Deku on sight, charge him with murder. Of course, this is Deku, who is like the, nicest, I'm a shy, good Samaritan, like literally helped old ladies cross the street kind of guy. So every other hero in the Hero Association is like, what proof do you have that he has murdered people? This is Deku we are talking about. He doesn't even want to kill villains. They've done really horrible things. And the police are like not wanting to do it. You have Endeavor, who's like Deku's boss. And instead of the usual thing where it's like, look, we had to take him in. He's just like, Endeavor's just like, what proof do you have against my subordinate that he has done anything wrong? And they're like, this is an ongoing investigation, sir. We can't offer you evidence at this time. And, they're so obviously working for the cult, and literally the second he leaves the room, he pulls out the cult's, Bible, and is like, soon. And Endeavor immediately is like, okay, you two, you're interns with him. We need you to find Deku. He's going to be off the grid. He's probably going to send you a coded message soon. You're going to figure out what's going on. We are going to focus on the bomb because that's the more pressing issue. But you two, you could break away. They lose the guards. You're trained heroes. Go do it. We all know Deku would have never done this. And I love that. It's like, yeah, they offer no proof. Of course the rest of the heroes wouldn't hunt down their old friends. Because, that's one of the things that happens a lot in shows like this, where one of the heroes is framed, is everyone immediately, even if they really don't want to believe it, are like, yeah, but we had to take you in. It's like, no, they're like, until you give us evidence, we're not helping you do shit. Which I don't like that. There's this whole moment where everybody's told about this, and, literally no one, they all have these shocked faces, but not the, how could he do that? It's like, no, Deku wouldn't do that. Come on. This is Deku we're talking about. Maybe if it was Bakugou, we might believe it. He's always on the edge of snapping. But Deku? I mean, are you guys, what are those police smoking? Wonderful. And so Todoroki and Bakugou help him out, and they, all eventually end up going to charge the cult leader at the end. Although Rhodey ends up, and what I was saying earlier, though, was that I think the reason the bomb was placed in the area where Rhodey's siblings and him live is because the scientist, his father, broke his word to Himari. So basically, he created a shutdown key and helped one of his fellow scientists who had been working on this with him escape. That's the guy who was carrying the briefcase, got put in a coma, and the briefcase got swapped, setting off this whole thing. The heroes find out about the key, and Rhodey learns that his father created it, but then they learn that there's a bomb coming, and when all hope seems lost, it looks like Rhodey's going to give over the key so that his family can be saved, and Fleck even and just like, yes, this is exactly how we got your father. See, if he hadn't done any of this, we wouldn't have to resort to such things. Now, I will shut down that bomb. And you get the sense, and unlike a lot of villains, I do get the sense that Fleck was genuinely going to shut down the bomb if he cooperated. Fleck knows he can't just, gas the entire world. And that would, irreparably damage the world itself. He's trying to create enough chaos and lure all the heroes in with the threat of a terrorist attack. They'll get a chance to stop it, but really we're cheating with 4 bombs in every location, that there's no way they can stop us in time. Which, yeah, none of the heroes were able to get all the bombs out in time, and if they had ever gone off, he would have decimated 90% of the world's heroes, and basically been free to do as he pleased, because no one would have had the authority or ability to stop him, physically speaking. That was his plan. He announced the terrorist attack to get all the world's best heroes, and even after they figure out it's a trap, they can't leave, because there's no way they still can't evacuate all these areas in time. So, they have to play his game, basically. And Rhodey, has this moment where he's about to go do it. And he flashes back to the moment, my quirk's kind of useless. And there's this really weird moment where I thought they were going to tell us so we could figure out the puzzle, but they don't really do that. And so Rhodey carries around this, weird pink bird, and apparently it's either, a bird he formed this, connection with, or it's, a manifestation of him, and it always shows what he's really feeling. And so when he's about to hand over the stick, the bird's just doing, play along to Deku. And so obviously he tricks him. He gets injured, but he tries to get there. He's blacking out, though. He's, got this big old wound in his side, and he's not going to make it. But then the bird brings it over there. He's like, oh, is my quirk entirely useless? I'm like, dude, compared to some other things, so basically everything else, even minor telekinesis is better than that. It's a pretty dumb quirk. I guess you can control a small bird. Cool. But, I mean, yeah, he stops the bomb because, again, this is a superhero movie, essentially. Like, they were not going to stop the bomb or something? Of course they were. This isn't Infinity War. Ugh. Anyway. What's really interesting, though, is afterwards they don't, like, it's not like, the family, like, gets their house back or anything like that. Like, the fact that he helped save the world isn't, like, an instant fix to Rudy's problems. He just kind of goes back to working for this guy at the bar. He doesn't want to run jobs anymore, so he's like, hey, do you have something more legitimate? It's like, yeah, I guess you could work in the bar with me. I did just lose somebody, so sure, why not? But it was a little weird. Like, I thought they were gonna, like, figure out that, like, Fleck had, like, because they used to live in, like, a really nice house, and even though their dad left, since he was kidnapped, there's very little chance that, like, all their money was stolen, so I'm a little confused as to how they went from living in this, like, really nice house, and then the dad left, but he was kidnapped, so he didn't take the money with him, obviously, and then they're, like, living in a trailer park. Like, I'm very confused on that. And maybe the corrupt police were involved with the Humorine. That was a big plot point. But, like, if that were the case, wouldn't they have, like, found out about all the horrible things they'd done and tried to make amends? I don't know. It was a little weird, I guess I'm saying. Like, they didn't really fix the situation. They gave him closure with his father, got him to, like, not, do as much petty crime as, like, hey, why don't you go just be a bartender? I don't know. Just, the ending felt a little odd to me. Especially even though Midoriya said, I'm totally going to visit. He's never going to visit. Well, maybe. Actually, you know what? Technically they could. Unlike most movies, fun fact, most anime movies aren't canon. Like, they technically don't take place on the timeline. They're just in this nebulous space in between these two eras. The best way I can put it is like a Pokemon movie. So a Pokemon movie doesn't happen in the timeline of the Pokemon TV show, but you can kind of see when it was supposed to have sort of happened based on the evolution of the Pokemon. So you can tell by, like, equipment, like Midoriya's costume, Bakugou's costume, and Todoroki's costume. You can kind of tell where they are in the timeline in the other movies, but we don't really know where they were. Although this is like a school kind of setting, so I guess those could have also technically been canon. But this one actually had a small stinger scene that revealed Fleck in the TV show, so I think this is actually canon to the TV show's plot. It's not really a needed arc, from what I understand, but, fun fact, this is canon. Alright, so this has gone on a little long. For those of you, who listened all the way through, thanks so much. I'm definitely going to recommend this. It's about an 8 out of 10. If you like superhero movies, if you like animation, if you like really good animation, check this out. It's a lot of fun. It's in theaters now. If not, it'll be on streaming soon. So, whatever you feel most comfortable with. I understand a lot of areas are still, in COVID and all that stuff. So, if you don't feel safe going to a theater, if your theater doesn't have proper safety measures, just wait. It'll come out online. You can all watch it. And, yeah. So, this Thursday, there are a few things coming up, actually. For those of you who, follow me or on other things, I've been working on something new. I'm looking to put these podcast episodes on YouTube, and I'm also looking to do some game streaming. See, I don't have as much time as I used to. I can do decent reading and watching because I can have shows on while I'm doing work. I can get afford to go to a movie once every other week or so. And I can listen to audiobooks. But games have always been really hard for me to review because I had to put a lot of time into them. So, as a way to kind of justify some of the time and maybe give you guys some more content in the meantime, I'm looking to start streaming within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Don't get too excited. It's going to be something minor. I'm still trying to figure out exactly where everything's going to go. I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to be on Twitch or YouTube. I'm probably going to be on YouTube streaming, but I might see about doing Twitch. I'll have to look into that still. The YouTube channel should be up in about a week and a half or so. I'm hoping to have it up by next Tuesday. If not, it'll be up by maybe next Thursday. Don't hold me to that. It's going to be a little rocky. I'm very, very busy right now. I have a few things going on. I'm actually working on designing my own video game. It's a little chaotic with work right now at the bookstore, and things are just crazy. So, hopefully that'll all go as planned, and if so, I will be doing a Nuzlocke run of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond when I do those. So I'm probably getting my copy on the 14th. I'm hoping to start reviewing it and start streaming it that weekend. If everything goes as planned, I already have a capture card coming in for me, so this is going to be a new thing for me. If you guys could support me there, I'd really appreciate it. It's really exciting for me to start doing this. I've always wanted to do a Nuzlocke challenge. I've tried a few in the past, but I've had my team get wiped pretty early on, so hopefully that won't happen this time. Additional news. On this Thursday, we're going to be reviewing this Friday, we're going to be reviewing The Eternals, because I'm going to go see that. So, looks really good. I've heard good things. Can't wait to see it. Aside from that, not really much else to say. I am finishing pretty close to Hades. I think I've gotten enough of the first run content that I'm going to feel confident doing a review. I just need to do like 1 or 2 more runs through, and I'll probably have a decent grasp of the story of Hades and Persephone, so I can do a proper review on that. So you can look forward to that in the future, in addition to the new Pokemon games, and all the new stuff coming soon. It's going to be really exciting. Thank you all for listening. Have a great night. Bye. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and thank you for listening to The Dragon's Library. Please subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes. The Dragon's Library releases new episodes Tuesday and Friday each week, and you can follow us on Twitter at dragon_library2. If you want to suggest an episode topic, my email is in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for all your support.